Welcome back to the $1 Million Sprint podcast. Fantastic to have you here. As mentioned before, if you're coming into this for the first time, do head on back to episode 1. The reason why is that these are all filmed in order to be able to go on the journey with you, a journey of discovery into how do you scale a service sector business to $1 million in revenue and beyond, and how can anybody do it, including you? Because if I can do it 3 times, then you can definitely do it. So let's go on this journey together. Let's go back. So if you haven't clicked on number 1, do. But for now, this is episode 3, pod number 3. Really, really excited to be talking to you about this because last week we talked about finding your Colin. So think about who your target audience is. And once you know who your target audience is, because if everybody tries to sell to everyone, nobody's going to really be nothing to no one. So be something to someone. And the story about my Colin and how I found that target audience in my first business was really my aha moment in terms of how my entire agency evolved to wrap around that particular Colin's needs and the result that they wanted, which meant it was very easy to find other people like that Colin. So today I want to talk about that last segment, find other people like that Colin, right? So step 2 in our 8-step system, which we're going to highlight at the start of this podcast, is find and hang out with their Colin now that you know the Colin. So who is that target audience where they're hanging out? Now, there's a number of different places that you can do that. And it's really, first of all, thinking about, well, where do they like currently being, right? So, for example, I think online, and most of our service sector businesses really should be thinking about online. And I find the best way to start is social media. But which platform does your Colin like hanging out in the most, right? So you might have, like we had, very business to business, corporate-y kind companies. My Colin back in the agency days was an IT support business. And so Colin loved LinkedIn, very corporate. He was selling into corporates, and himself had come out of corporate. And so although LinkedIn started as a job site, it is now a massive social network, one of the highest and quickest growing social networks there is out there. And it is a business to business platform, which is fantastic for someone like Colin. And so if you have a similar type of target market, then LinkedIn is fantastic for that. And LinkedIn has basic search where you can use the search bar at the top. You can drill down to find out your different search criteria. And if you're using a basic search, you could do something like, so for example, if I was trying to find Colin, I would go director plus IT plus UK. And that will show me all the directors in the UK of IT companies. Now, the difficulty with basic search within LinkedIn is that will give you everybody who's from the UK director of Microsoft all the way down to the independent IT contractor. And it depends on who you want to work with. So for the budgets that we were with the agency, we were charging like $3,000 a month or whatever it is. So they were needing, we would definitely need someone not to be an independent retailer for, that was the base level, right? So we were expecting to go higher than that. So we wanted people sort of 20 to 30 staff, owner operated. So that's where Sales Navigator really, really helps. Now, Sales Navigator allows you to drill down further. So for example, you can look for company headcount on Sales Navigator. You can look at industry sector. You can also look at things such as small business being a criteria that you're looking for. And so the payment, which I think works out to be like £66 a month or whatever it is, like, will change. It seems to change monthly, so probably the next time you watch this, it will be different again. But the costs in there are small compared to the beautiful output of the data, because you only have so much time in the day. So if you want to work on quality data, then it's sometimes worth the upgrade, particularly if you're trying to work with different size of businesses. The other kicker with Sales Navigator is that it has a toggle that says is active in the last 30 days. So if we want to connect with people, that's the find we're doing now, and then hang out, i.e. let's connect. So we're part of each other's networks. They might see your next post that you might be putting out. You can see their post. You can like and comment on their posts. So you're kind of chatting, hanging out. Think of it as a big party, and you need to kind of have a chat, bit of smoozing, have a glass of wine, a bit of a laugh together before you then say, hey, do you fancy spending, have a coffee tomorrow or the next day, or actually talking a little bit more detail. You've got to kind of do that networking thing, right? And so you want to be in the right party, and that's what Sales Navigator does. And you also want the people at that party to be alive, right? Because there's no point if everybody's just like completely fallen over and fallen to sleep. So their toggle that says active in the last 30 days means that this search is going to be people that are not only your target criteria, but people that are actually doing stuff and networking and actually live on LinkedIn. So they're far more likely to see your content and therefore far more likely to go forth and actually do something about it, right? So that's why we really like that type of content, and that's why that search really, really works. Now, once we know who they are, then we can do the connection request. We can then start to like them, share their posts, etc. And we're now in their world and we're building relationships. And then when we call them to action, which we'll be covering off tomorrow, then they are far more susceptible to taking that action. I say tomorrow, the next time we run a podcast, right? But what if it's not? What if it's that they're hanging out on Instagram or Facebook? What do? Well, Facebook has groups. And actually LinkedIn also has groups, which is good for this type of, because the people are clustering together, right? And so when someone clusters together, that's perfect. So for example, on Facebook, if I'm trying to do something difficult, so this could be LinkedIn, it could be Facebook, but for example, weight loss, right? How do I know if all of the thousands of people are out there on these social networks that I could connect to, who's actually interested in losing weight? Because I can't really go and do a search for overweight because it's not a search, nor should it should be. And so you need to go and find nucleuses of people that are interested in subjects around weight loss. And the best way to do that, because we've worked on this with our clients, is look for groups that are already interested in certain fad diets. So for example, there's groups for ketosis diet, there's groups for the caveman diet, there's groups for the Atkins diet, there's groups for God knows what else, vegan groups. I suppose it's slightly more of a way of life, but do you see what I mean? And so you're trying to find these groups of people that are already putting their hand up to say that they're interested in weight loss. And so once you can get into those groups, then you can kind of network people, talk to people, answer questions, maybe say why you don't think keto is particularly good and people should be going on to XYZ diet, or people should be thinking about YZ whatever diet. Then that's where you can then find these people, find your Colin, and hang out with the Colin, so interact with people and answer their questions, so you're abundant in their world, right? And so you connect with them. So Facebook's really good for that. LinkedIn, you can also do that. Instagram is different. Instead of groups, think about influencers. Think about other influencers that people are interested in that are currently around, and who you could start to not just follow the influencer itself, but the followers of the influencer. And you start messaging them, say, hey, it's great. See, we both like XYZ influencer. Did you see his latest post on this? Hey, why don't we, what are you currently doing about this, right? What is your thoughts? What is your opinions? And then you're communicating with them. You're hanging out, you're following them. They start following you, and then they can start seeing your posts. And of course, when we talk about step 3, where we over deliver value for them and we move them into our database, then they are prime for that. But for now, we just need to go and make lots of friends online of your Colin. Now, I get clients to audit their followers, be it LinkedIn followers, be it Instagram followers, Facebook followers, whatever, YouTube followers, and actually think about, well, how many of these people are actually my target market? And I don't know about you, but through my LinkedIn profile, for example, my Facebook profile is full of lots of friends from university and mates from different bits. My LinkedIn, when I started, well, I used to go to all these BNI breakfast networking things and for networking and all the rest of it. And so I was just connecting to anybody in those networks because that's what I did. I was networking, right? And nobody, except for like one or two people in like a whole year, was my Colin. Whereas the rest of them were, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and not my target audience. But yet I'm still connected with them. So if you think about, say, 100 connections, maybe from my old way of looking at LinkedIn, for example, 2 out of the 100 were actually my Colin. So that means 98% are incorrect. So when I push a piece of content out that's aimed at Colin, there's a 98% chance it's going to be seen by the wrong people. And if it is tailored towards the 2%, well, the 98% aren't going to like it, comment, or share on it, which means it's got a handicap. It's only 2% likely to go viral to your audience because you've got to hope that only 2% are actually going to like and share it. Then it will show it to more people that have liked and shared it, right? But if it's 98% wrong before you even get out the gate, then it's got no hope. So your audience does have a massive impact on your ability for your content to get into your target audience, particularly if the content's been written for that target audience. So my pedigree chumps, it's time to actually think about culling your audience. And that's not like, not being friends with your mum on Facebook, but it's perhaps about, on Facebook, you can put groups together, right? Not groups, but like distribution groups where you can have friends and family and you can actually tag those within your connections as that. And when you share a post, you can actually use a drop down to say, hey, I want to share to this particular group, not actual group, but this particular list on there. So you can have a Colin list, and then you can have a family list or a friends and family list. And when you post, you can just share it to your Colin list, so it only gets shared to those type of people, which means that will then help the virality of that post. And of course, you can be a little bit more worky then because people worry about sort of private life versus public life, etc. through that. And then also, when it comes to LinkedIn, I would just cull. I'd just go, right, this is a professional network. This is where I want to hang out. These are the people I want to work with. I'm going to unfollow. And I had a VA of mine work through my list and she just smashed through it. Anybody that wasn't a service sector business, bam, see ya, and just disconnected with everybody, which means the content does better. I can be confident with the way that I post my content. And I now know that everybody I'm connected with, my entire feed, are Collins. And so I can just like and comment and engage and be great and attentive to anybody that I see on LinkedIn, because the likelihood is that they are all my Collins. So I hope that that's inspired you to review, cull, and connect with your Colin. So hope that helps. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, where we're talking about siphoning that into your database. Again, I've said tomorrow 5 times already, but next week for the next episode of the $1 Million Sprint podcast. Big love, take care, see you on the flip side.